Welcome into the LSU Sports Insider podcast for Monday, November the 3rd. I'm Zach Ewing with Scott Rabelais and Wilson Alexander. Wilson making his return to the podcast. Welcome back. And what a week you have chosen to come back. Chosen is probably the wrong word.
That's correct. It was not. If I could have the floor for a moment, I suppose, because this is my first time on the podcast in over a month. Originally, this was going to be when I returned to work after my wife died, and obviously the events of the past week sort of forced all of us into a lot to do, recover a story that we did not quite expect. And I felt like I needed to get back to work to help with all of that around here. But I just want to say thank you to anybody who has reached out and supported me over the past month. This has been more difficult than I think I can properly describe on the fly. And we'd probably be here for a while just talking about that if I really were to dig into it. But I just wanted to say thank you to everybody genuinely, because it is every little bit has helped. So thanks.
Well, I think I speak for all of us when I say that we are happy to be there for you, and we're happy to have you back under these unfortunate circumstances. And as we said, the podcast in perpetuity dedicated to the memory of Elise. So with that said, we'll roll on here. And Wilson, you came back into this mess and I think did a really phenomenal job sort of summarizing it. And so we will talk about the story that you had on theadvocate.com. Did it post yesterday or Saturday?
Sunday morning.
Sunday morning. And encourage everybody to go read it if you haven't already. But Wilson talked to 15 people within the LSU football program who worked either around or for Brian Kelly and kind of just dug into why it didn't work. And I think gave the most complete picture yet of just what went wrong.
Well, thank you for that. That's high praise. Yeah, should we just start with kind of like a broad summary of it?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Is there anything else that we need to get to before we
let's start there, and then we've got some coaching search stuff to talk about, and maybe what happened Friday in Verge Ausberry's press conference, and there's a lot to get to. But
didn't know we had like an ad read or something that we had to hit before we
get to it. Our friends at Jerry Lane Cadillac, we do appreciate them, but we will get to it.
Okay, all right. So I guess just to sort of summarize it broadly, the people who I spoke to thought that Brian Kelly brought in structure that was needed at LSU. When you think back to the end of the Ed Orgeron era, Scott Woodward really thought that was way too volatile over those past 2 years, and LSU went 11-12 overall after winning the national championship. And so they thought that LSU needed to have that in place. And a lot of people gave credit to Brian Kelly for doing that with his emphasis on accountability and academics. But that, one person who I spoke to, this wasn't actually in the story, but he was involved in the creative team at one time and had a hand in sort of everything about the path, the branding around Brian Kelly's football program, and thought that kind of summed up well that it just felt too corporate for what LSU football is. Not enough sort of passion and swagger. It felt very kind of sterile. And I mean, Brian Kelly did improve LSU's APR scores and all of that, but it wasn't, as one person said for this story, it was that he basically, let me find the quote again real quick. He tried to build LSU in the mold of Notre Dame, and that's not what LSU needed, a former member of the athletic department said. LSU needed structure, but didn't need to swing so far away from its identity that it forgot who it was. And I think that's kind of broadly a solid summation of what a lot of people thought happened. And part of that is because Brian Kelly brought in the CEO approach to doing things, but then what became a little bit too detached. And when you're detached, your assistants have to be really, really good. And LSU was constantly dealing with issues on the assistant staff, like, oh, maybe this person should get fired or this person should get fired, and the defensive staff isn't good. Oh, now it's the offensive staff. He wasn't able to assemble everything together all at once the way he needed to. Because in the past, that had worked for him at Notre Dame, but he didn't have that clicking all at once at LSU, and that's ultimately, I think, what did him in.
Can I ask a question?
You may.
Thank you. Yeah. May I have the floor? Yeah. In talking to all these people, did you get the overall sense of the Kelly era? Was it what you expected to hear, or was it like there was more disconnect, more of the CEO distance with Kelly than you expected to hear about?
Maybe a little bit more than I expected to hear about. Like, I didn't expect one of the current staff members to say that they joked it felt like "Where's Waldo?" within the building.
That was really a good quote.
That one staff member who was hired didn't see Kelly for 4 weeks after he got hired, and he said that he may have been in the building a lot, but I didn't see him there. That he was usually kind of sequestered off into his office, and not mingling and interacting with people is what a lot of people have said about Brian Kelly throughout his tenure. You go back to Notre Dame at the end of the 2016 season when Notre Dame went 4-8. There was a lot of talk from Kelly and other people around that program that he was going to be more involved, and he realized he had grown away from that, and that was going to be a renewed emphasis. And it feels like that kind of happened again. That he didn't have the relationships that he needed to throughout the building. There were people who said that they were close to him, and a lot of people who I talked to for the story really said, I don't think Brian Kelly is a bad guy. I don't wish any ill will on him. I just basically, the overriding sentiment was, I just didn't see him enough. That I would have liked to have seen more of him. One staff member told me, he's like, whenever I had a one-on-one interaction with Brian Kelly, I really enjoyed it. But they were few and far between. And that was kind of one of the most common criticisms.
He's kind of this CEO type head coach, and so some of that is understandable, but it just felt so uncomfortable. He looked uncomfortable by the end. I think other people around him were, we've kind of decried it wasn't the right fit thing, Rab, before, because fit is sort of this nebulous term, but it did not feel like it fit. But it's certainly not by the end.
No, it's certainly not. And you look back on it and said, yeah, this wasn't a fit. But, I go back to what Wilson said. You have to have you have to just learn the place a little bit. It is a little bit different. I think a lot of the rest of the SEC is a little more homogenous. LSU is a little different. Nick Saban Nick Saban, when he came here, did not like to, schmooze with people and talk to people, but he kind of learned that in Louisiana, you kind of got to say, how you doing? How's your mom and them? What have you been doing? And then you get him down to business. And then, and he learned that. I don't know if he ever liked it, but he learned it. And of course, Les Miles, his successor, was a more personable guy. It came down to him or Bobby Petrino, and they're like, we're not hiring another guy like Nick Saban. This guy's at least more personable. And then of course, Ed Orgeron, who was South Louisiana, say what you want about Ed Orgeron, he understood the culture. And I think Brian Kelly, like Wilson said, he kind of figured he could just come in here and put the stamp, mold LSU in the way he molded a Notre Dame program that ultimately was pretty successful. They had the 5 straight 10-win seasons, right, and made it to the college football playoff 3 times? Twice. So, mostly very successful, winningest coach in Notre Dame history. And LSU's not Notre Dame, and I don't think he ever quite got that to the degree that he needed to. Now this year with his staff, everyone had Louisiana ties. Every member of his assistant coaching staff had Louisiana ties, but still, it wasn't quite enough. Too little, too late, I guess.
Yeah, as one former staff member said, he did not embrace Louisiana, and he didn't embrace LSU culture. He felt like it needed to be changed, and it, in this case, is the structure of the football program. And part of it needed to be changed, but you have to come in and really embrace it still. Again, just to emphasize, this person, when he was saying it needed to be changed, he did not mean Louisiana needed to be changed so much as what was happening inside the football program. But yeah, he didn't embrace it to the level that he needed to. This is more so me talking than from my reporting. It felt like Kelly believed he could come in, continue to do foundationally everything that he had done before, and that all of LSU's natural advantages would just sort of mesh with that and create this superpower type of thing. I think there was a little bit of hubris in there.
Yeah, definitely.
And
it seems so.
And to kind of maybe put a bow on this, and as we start to look forward to okay, well, who should LSU get next? A current staff member, longtime staff member, said there's a certain edge that this place has, and that's what ultimately slipped from us. That this person thinks that the next coach needs to accept that culture, accepts the things that make LSU different. And I hate the word unique; it gets overused, but in this case, I feel like it's applicable. Unique, that they have to be passionate and tough and get everybody in the team to feel that way and kind of galvanize in a way that Kelly didn't.
You listen to Tiger Stadium on a Saturday night, and clean cut and stoic are not exactly the words that come to mind. And it did feel a little bit like a square peg in a round hole. So we will spin this forward and talk about what it means for what is next for LSU. Also, what's ahead for Verge Ausberry and as the interim athletic director, and what will happen in that position and much more. First, want to let you know that the LSU Sports Insider is brought to you by Jerry Lane Cadillac. You can command the road in a Cadillac where luxury, power, and presence come together. Experience it today at Jerry Lane Cadillac. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we will talk about what this means for what's next.
You know how far I've gone, now I'm home again. I'm feeling more alive these days than I've ever been.
At the Baton Rouge Clinic, our sole focus is to provide exceptional health care for your entire family so that you can get back to doing what you love most. We are caring for generations.
You gave me love, gave me love.
Did they ask you to do the commercial too?
Yeah, but they just gave me one line.
Bet like a Caesar. Like, we're gonna sit here and we're gonna tell them how Caesar's Sportsbook is just so easy to use that you can watch and bet thousands of sports events, even some NFL games.
They'll probably show us betting on our favourite players and teams at all the Vegas hotspots too.
Like, we have time for that montage.
I told him I couldn't do it.
They couldn't afford me.
I think the biggest thing that separates us is our people. We have a really amazing staff that really care about their customers, really care about our product. At Jerry Lane Cadillac, we value trust and transparency above all else. We have a little bit of something for everyone, so whether it be the 2025 Escalade, any of the smaller crossover vehicles, the XT4, 5, and 6, we've also got a wide variety of new EVs, including the 2025 electric Escalade IQ. I think the product lineup right now is the best that it's ever been in Cadillac.
And welcome back to the LSU Sports Insider Podcast. Zach Ewing with Wilson Alexander and Scott Rabelais. Here on this Monday, we are talking what's next for LSU. Obviously, this is Alabama week, but that's kind of been put on the back burner for now. We'll talk more about that on Thursday's podcast and what Frank Wilson and company are doing to prepare for that. But right now, we're still talking coaching situation, coaching search, and what's next. And what's next is brought to you by the Baton Rouge Clinic, your trusted healthcare provider in the heart of Baton Rouge. Whether you're in need of primary care, specialist services, or urgent care, the Baton Rouge Clinic has you covered with a team of dedicated and experienced professionals. Visit BatonRougeClinic.com to learn more or to schedule your appointment today. The Baton Rouge Clinic, caring for generations. And we'll start here, Wilson. Friday, Verge Ausberry had a press conference. Felt a little bit like it was part damage control for what Governor Landry had maybe done the day before, or on Wednesday. We talked about that on Thursday's pod. But he did say some interesting things.
Yeah, well, I think the top takeaway from it, because it was also two very high-ranking members of the LSU board, the chair of the board, Scott Ballard, and the chair of the athletics committee, John Carmouche. All three of these men are involved in the search committee for LSU's next head coach. But the first takeaway from it is that, according to Carmouche, and Ballard backed this up as well, that Ausberry has, quote, full authority in this coaching search to both search for the next head coach and hire the next head coach. One of the things that Ballard said later on in the press conference was that their priority isn't even getting in the next full-time athletic director, that's going to basically be on the back burner until they hire the next head coach. I don't know how, I know, I feel fairly confident in that they are already starting to search for this next AD and try to figure that out. We even had on Friday afternoon Josh Brooks, the athletic director at Georgia, who is a native of Hammond and an LSU graduate, come out and say he has no interest in any other job, basically addressing that speculation and his potential link to this position. But yeah, that Verge is leading this search is kind of like the thing that they were trying to emphasize. And to your point, it really did feel like damage control. Verge Ausberry's comments were, I think as he spoke, he had sort of maybe a little bit of defensiveness to him. I think he was trying to portray strength and competence. Yeah. Well, especially when he came out and said LSU is not broken. That was, I think, trying to address this perception that has formed over the past week about the state that the athletic department is in with the governor's involvement.
It very much was trying to do damage control. I thought the statements that were made saying they're going to have the money to hire whoever they need to hire, and that LSU is still a very attractive job. That Verge said his phone was still ringing off the hook, and like you said, that he's in charge. That he's in charge of the search as the interim athletic director. And like Verge has been involved in several of these. He is an LSU lifer basically. He came here as a football player in the 1980s, became an assistant athletic director, worked his way up through the ranks, and has been involved in a lot of these things over the years. So they're trying to distance themselves from the fact that. From the notion, I should say, not fact, that Governor Landry is going to be pulling all the strings here. So we'll see how it turns out. I think having Verge Ausberry running the show, because of his experience with these things, is probably pretty good under the circumstances. Obviously, Scott Woodward was forced out as well. So as well as Brian Kelly. So we shall see. It's unusual. It certainly looks unusual to say that. It's going to be school presidents expect to be announced on Tuesday, new president, then hire a football coach and then an athletic director. And people are like, and then conventionally, most of us think, well, this is not how jobs work. I have a boss and they have a boss. And when you're the LSU football coach, you're the man, basically. You know, who's your athletic director is not as important as it is when you work at another company. So that could work, but it's all a little unsettled, uneasy, and of course there's also the specter in the background of how much is Governor Landry going to try to force himself into this proceeding.
The concern would be perhaps immediately it's okay that the football coach is hired before the athletic director, but that potentially down the line it could cause friction if that athletic director did not hire that football coach and they did not have already an understanding of each other when the football coach came in. That could cause some friction for one or both individuals. We'll see.
Yeah,
or it could be fine. Who knows?
You hear that all the time. Like, he's not the athletic director's guy, and so that makes him more likely to be fired if things aren't going well. If things are going well, Rad, this is one area where LSU would not be unique. A successful football coach is the most powerful figure in an athletic department anywhere. More so than the athletic director, more so than now an unsuccessful football coach, not so much. But if you're winning, you're bringing in the revenue. You're the king of that athletic department, and so that is all remains to be seen. My question is, and we can tie this back to your story if you want, Wilson, or not. What do you think LSU is looking for in a new coach, and what candidates fit that mold?
I don't know what exactly they're looking for because. It can go so many different ways in this search. Are they wanting just, Lane Kiffin, somebody established, like they've always, like they've done for how many hires in a row now? 4 straight hires. I'm sorry, Rab, help me out here. There's been quite a few hires. I mean, Ed was an interim that you elevated, but since Jerry DiNardo, everybody had been sitting Power 4 coaches. Yeah. So Jerry DiNardo, Nick Saban, Les Miles, this is an established track record of how they go after of what they go after. I'm curious to see if they're going to do that again. Conventionally, I think that you would think so because of that track record.
The last person they didn't hire with head coaching experience was Mike Archer in 1987. So that's a very long time.
Right. But again, the contract piece is what I was trying to get to. I wonder how much that's going to affect things. As you referenced, Verge Ausberry said, our job, I was told, is to get the best football coach there is, and don't worry about that at all. Whatever it takes to get that person here, we will do. But Jeff Landry has made it very clear in his comments what he would like to see from this next contract, which is something that is more incentive heavy, less guaranteed money, that then puts LSU under a smaller, which is relative in these terms, but smaller buyout than the $54 million that Brian Kelly is owed, depending on how those negotiations shake out. And that limits your candidate pool. So I'm fascinated to see which direction they go and if the contract thing matters or if they just sign somebody else to another gigantic contract with a huge buyout. I'm not exactly sure. I feel like it's just still really early days.
Well, it's a good goal to limit the buyout, right? Like, I think we all recognize that's a bad thing to be contractually obligated to do in such a volatile business. But if Florida or Penn State is offering that, or Auburn, that's another thing that changed over the weekend, is now Auburn's job is open as well. Or if Lane Kiffin leaves Ole Miss and then Ole Miss is open, or Arkansas, or any of these schools start offering that size buyout, that becomes much more attractive to a coaching candidate than LSU's offer would be if they don't do that. So this is where it gets sticky, Rab. And I know you have a fresh list of odds from Odds Checker there on who the coach may be. So maybe we can frame the discussion of candidates that way.
Yeah, and let's keep in mind that these are, I think you would attest, Zach, these are some of the least sure things when it comes to odds. This is some of the worst things that a Vegas does.
They don't let you bet a lot on these. Okay. Well, I mean, frankly, Odds Checker, I'm not even sure if these are actually bettable odds. If they are, they're offshore. They're not technically legal. But if people are putting money on them, they're still somewhat instructive. You just can't. It's not like you can go put hundreds of thousands of dollars down on this.
Number one on their list was John Summerall from Tulane. They lost to UTSA over last week, Thursday, I think. That's a strike against him, maybe, but it makes it less likely that Tulane's going to make the playoff. Like you said, they still have a shot to win their conference and make the college football playoff, but he might be available. That makes it and at a lower price for a guaranteed contract, as Wilson was saying. So,
I would just like to interject: if you are making a decision on a coach based on the result of one game, he shouldn't be your guy anyway. That's my opinion. One loss should not be like, Summerall's not the guy.
My one concern, though, that loss now starts to maybe look like a little bit of a pattern for Summerall. At the end of last season, Tulane was rolling, as you might recall, and then lost to Memphis, lost to Army, lost to Florida. Mm-hmm. Those were good teams last year. But, I mean, Army was ranked, but Florida's a power conference team. But I worry now. Just that's a little bug in my ear, in my head now after watching them lose to UTSA. It's like, oh, does something happen to your teams in November? Yeah. I think that needs to be considered.
And it will be. I mean, obviously, we're just starting November. So, number 2 on their list was Joe Brady, offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills, of course, LSU experience. I'll believe it when I see it when Joe Brady comes back to coaching college football. I think he's closer to.
I think you can cross that one off.
It doesn't seem realistic. I don't understand.
I think he's more likely to get an NFL head coaching job. And talk about a win. They just came off a big win over the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday. So, and not one win, but he's done a good job. And of course, he's got a great he's got a future Hall of Fame quarterback likely to work with, Josh Allen. So, but Joe Brady, he didn't. Everyone said when he was here in 2019, he didn't like recruiting. He didn't like that part of it, and he's just all football. Just supposed to be all football, which you can be in the NFL. Number 3 on their list is Lane Kiffin of Ole Miss. Obviously. For a lot of people, the candidate, not just at LSU, but at other schools like Florida. Auburn, probably. He was very close to getting the Auburn job when they hired Hugh Freeze. And he decided not to take it. The huge complication, though, is when could you get him, right? Because the college football playoff. After their win Saturday, it looks like even if they lost to Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl at the end of the season, because it's a rivalry game, they're still 10-2. They still have a very good shot to make the college football playoff. I think most people expect them to be in. More likely, they'll be 11-1 and make the playoff. So how where do they get in now? Do they have a bye? I mean, you might go from playing mid-December. They might play in mid-December. They might play in around New Year's Day. Quarterfinal game.
Let's press pause on your list for a second and talk about that. Let's talk about how the schedule could complicate this. Because if Lane Kiffin is your guy, and this is true for Florida as well, if Florida wants to hire Lane Kiffin, they look like they're going to make the playoff. That means you're playing the weekend of December 20th is the first round.
Correct.
If they were to win a game, and right now I think probably more likely than not, Ole Miss has a home first round game. Like that's the area they're in that 5-8 range if they keep winning. Let's say they win that game. Then you're playing in the quarterfinal round New Year's weekend. The transfer portal opens January 2nd.
2nd through the 15th.
I mean, come on. You can't have a guy coaching in the Sugar Bowl or the Rose Bowl on January 1st and then taking a new job and hitting the ground running and getting the transfer class that you want to get. You can see how this gets complicated. From Lane Kiffin's end, he doesn't want to be negotiating with a new school or have a memorandum of understanding or something that then gets leaked, because it would get leaked. There's lots of people, such as yourself, who would be digging for that. Like, you don't want that leaked out while you're trying to win a national championship with Ole Miss. Like, this gets very messy for a guy like Lane Kiffin.
It does. It also sort of helps. It'll become very clear, probably the first week of December, if LSU is going after somebody. who is still coaching in the college football playoff. Because if not, and there's really no hang up in getting a contract done and getting somebody on board fairly soon after Thanksgiving. If that doesn't happen fairly soon after that first week of the regular season, if you recall, LSU hired Brian Kelly 2 days after the last game against Texas A&M, then it would become very obvious that they're going after somebody, and then things start to get very unusual. One, for that coach, how do you address it with your team? And two, then, if that coach just continues to, sure, maybe you can put like a signed agreement in a drawer somewhere and close the drawer, but you have to better make sure that thing is signed. Otherwise, that coach could just say like, well, we're going on our way to winning the national championship. I'm not going to come. And then you're really in a bad spot. So there are a lot of those considerations that need to be made, and it's something that LSU's going to have to think about very seriously.
But should you eliminate a coach just because of the schedule and because he might have to play hard to get?
It's a good point. If he's the long-term answer, maybe you take a hit in his very first year transfer class because you think he's the long-term answer.
That's what I'm thinking. Number 4 on this list, James Franklin, the idle rich. He's obviously not coaching now. I can't see James Franklin, LSU hiring James Franklin. Just
it'd be
getting
very
a younger version of Brian Kelly. Huh?
Yeah, it'd be very Kelly-esque. I don't think that you would do that.
I can see Reb's list from here, and he actually wrote idle rich next to James Franklin,
That's true.
which is amazing.
Number 5, Eli Drinkwitz from Missouri. I think if LSU offered, I'm sorry, Zach, if LSU offered Eli Drinkwitz a job, he would come.
I think so, and he's one who's not going to be in the playoff. Almost certainly likely. I think Missouri
almost certainly likely.
They have 2 losses. I mean, technically speaking, but they're down to a third-string quarterback. Like he is almost certainly not going to be in the playoff. And so
it might not look good down the stretch for Missouri compared to what it has been.
That's, I guess, another concern is how much do you worry about the optics of that if Missouri loses a couple more games with a third-string quarterback? Oh, we hired a guy who went 7-5. What are we doing? So it is an interesting one. He's had some success there. Obviously, injuries are not the head coach's fault, but it's interesting. It would be one you could hire right away.
Yeah, LSU hired Jared DiNardo when he lost 65-0 at Vanderbilt to Tennessee, and then they hired him. So
that didn't work out.
No, it didn't. Yeah. So, but that could be Jeff Brom of Louisville. This is a guy who I think his stock is continuing to rise. He is a Louisville guy. He's coaching at his alma mater. I think that
could be in the playoff.
Also could be in the playoff. It was very difficult, but a good offensive mind, and they say he's not going to be someone who likes to schmooze with boosters and stuff like that. But
and that might be fine. I think the thing is that people see from the football coach, as we've been hitting on different qualities, it's just like work hard, like grind. I think that if we're talking, oftentimes after a coach gets fired, the next hire is usually like in the opposite direction. They want to. Sometimes people overcorrect.
Oh, very much.
So I think what LSU might try to do is find somebody who, like a Brom, is maybe is going to be like just constantly working, always in the building all the time. And that's probably what you need in the hyper-competitive SEC. That was one of the other criticisms of Brian Kelly. It was like, as a recruiter, like not just constantly obsessed with it, like involved. Let's be clear. A lot of people said like he was involved, but not to like a Kirby Smart, Nick Saban level where they were like only thinking about that. So Brom would be an interesting one. If you could get him again, though, and it is similar to the next person on your list. Can you get him from his alma mater?
Yeah, Brent Key of Georgia Tech. Again, they just lost Saturday to NC State. So, but you shouldn't just look at one game. He's done a very good job. They're still in the hunt for the ACC title in the college football playoff. Coaching at his alma mater, but he's got that tough-nosed quality.
Yeah, he's done impressive things at Georgia Tech. Yeah. I think it would be, if LSU were able to get him, I think it would be a fantastic hire.
Yeah. Then after that, Jimbo Fisher, who's currently working for the ACC network, also the idle rich. But I don't think you can sell Jimbo Fisher to the LSU fan base. I just don't. Maybe when they hired Ed Orgeron,
maybe Scott Woodward was still the athletic director.
Yeah, well, I think his name, you'd have to give him more consideration if Scott was still the athletic director. And then Clark Lee at Vanderbilt, again, just lost Saturday, but a heck of a comeback. I mean, they didn't quit. I mean, they were this close to getting the onside kick, and then they could go down and score again. Texas would have had an epic fail. But I think it doesn't diminish their loss Saturday. Does not diminish to me the job he's done at Vanderbilt.
Absolutely.
My only question is how much is him and how much is Diego Pavia? You know, is he kind of a one-trick pony? I would love to see him do this a year after Pavia leaves. You know, see him have them 9 wins and in the Citrus Bowl or something. Man, that's really a good job at Vanderbilt. I'm a little concerned. Another, like Balkielko, Brian Kelly, former defensive coordinator there. So it'd be interesting. And of course, one name that's not on this list is Nick Saban that everyone's talking about. I think people asked me about. I was at a party yesterday, and people asked me about Nick Saban. And I said, I wouldn't say it's no chance. I would say it's like a 1% chance, but I wouldn't completely rule it out. But I think if there's any place he would go back into coaching, it would be LSU. But
yeah, Saban feels unlikely. Dan Lanning came out and basically said he's staying at Oregon. I mean,
which is what Nick Saban said. What the correct the Alabama job when he's with the Dolphins.
I mean, you have to take these guys at their word until you have evidence not to. I guess.
I don't think you can take any of these people at their word.
I don't know why Dan Lanning would leave when you have Oregon money.
No, and
the only thing is where you are now in the Big Ten, and there's going to be a season when they have to go play Rutgers and Maryland on the road within a 3-week span, you know, going all the way across the country, and that's for a head football coach. That can't be a good feeling. That can't be. People control freaks like these guys are.
I don't think that's the reason you leave a job, though.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, it's also not. They also don't have a great talent base in Oregon.
No, they don't.
You got to recruit nationally.
He's an SEC guy. Maybe he's. I actually think he's from Kansas City area, but he's coached in the SEC before, and so maybe there's a pull to get back to this part of the country. But Oregon's a pretty damn good job, and he's acting like he wants to stay there. So it's interesting. The schedule is so much different in college football than it was even a few years ago. Between the expanded playoff, between the single kind of one-shot, one-kill transfer portal window. And that's why this will be fascinating. And I think we'll just end there. Wilson, as you said, like in a month, we'll probably know, is LSU going after a guy in the portal? I mean, in the playoff, or are they going to go ahead and make the hire? Let's
also remember this as we can really, I feel like now we can fully turn our attention into the coaching search after it was, because first it was like, wait, what's happening with the athletic director? Now we can really kind of start to hone in on this. I'm going to take y'all back to the Texas A&M game, LSU's regular season finale at the end of the 2021 season. Rab, I think you've told this story on the podcast before. Rab and I sit next to each other in the press box, and we are pretty close to the athletic director suite. And everybody's wondering who is the hire going to be, and is it going to be Lincoln Riley? There was a ton of chatter and smoke around Lincoln Riley. Rab turns to me and writes on the back of his notepad and just turns to me with the name Brian Kelly. Because that's when we first started really hearing it was
that was the name the Board of Supervisors members were talking about during the game. Yeah.
I hope that we haven't scared them off by saying this story. That please come and sit in the athletic director suite.
There's a window, you can see, by the way.
Yeah. Anyhow, they and that was just, it came out of nowhere, really, that it was going to end up being Brian Kelly. And so this coaching search, these are the names that are being talked about now, but it would not surprise me in the least if nobody who's being mentioned ends up actually getting the LSU job.
Yeah, I almost wonder, where would you put the field on that list? As in anybody who's not listed.
I would put the field ahead of James Franklin.
I think I'd put him ahead of Joe Brady.
Joe Brady, yeah.
I might not put him ahead of Kiffin, but outside of Kiffin and Summerall, I think I'd go
This
field.
is my 7th LSU coaching search. Okay, and we always have lists. And I remember one year there was a photo that they cut the head out of somebody. It was just a coach on the sideline, and there was just a dotted line around. And so we had all these lists of names. And I remember my editor or some editor asked me, "Do you think we have the guy on this list?" I said, "Probably not," and we didn't. I forget which coaching search it was because there's been so many of them.
Melt together.
But we did not have it. We did not have it on the list. It's but I think there's some qualities they have to look for. And you may think Verge Ausberry, you the viewers out there, is the right guy or the not right guy to be leading the search. You may wish Scott Woodward was doing it. He does know what LSU needs, or I'm sure he has a good idea of what LSU needs in a coach. And so that's probably a check. In all this craziness, that's probably one check mark in the LSU column.
All right. Well, we will follow the coaching search closely, of course. But for Thursday's episode, we'll put it just not on the back burner, but maybe on the side burner, and talk a little LSU Alabama. Frank Wilson will have his team going to Tuscaloosa on Saturday night. So that's our next LSU Insider episode. We are brought to you by Jerry Lane Cadillac. Our producer today was Molly Ballinger. For Wilson Alexander and Scott Rabelais, I'm Zach Ewing. Thank you for watching.